I'm ready for action.
All right, what's up, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram? How y'all doing tonight? This is TK from Comic Insider. So we're here with one of the main stars tonight from Atlantic Rim, Nicole Dickson. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, TK?
I am good. I'm trying to stay safe during this crisis. How about you?
I'm trying to stay safe during the crisis too. It's crazy. Who knew the pandemic was going to involve us in our houses and not, Mad Maxing it across unknown planes.
Right? I mean, honestly, it's kind of crazy. I felt like, since we got to, run into each other at Pensacon last month,
Yep.
I should have got an interview with you then because, I had no idea on this. And the digital interviews, like we were saying, a minute ago, it's kind of a crazy new world on this. The whole digital stuff, it's just a trip.
It's definitely different. Like when it's funny to watch like the celebrities and stuff, like John Krasinski from The Office doing his Some Good News thing, and watching Trevor Noah, and watching all of Seth Meyers' house.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen any of his interviews, but like every day he's like somewhere different in his house. It's like we're gonna see every single part of his house eventually. I'm very excited about this.
I've seen the Daily Show with Trevor Noah, how he changed the name up to the the Daily Social Distancing Show.
Oh yeah, the Daily Social Distance Show. Yep. And so it's neat. It's different, definitely, and technologically, yeah, it's a lot harder. But I think that some interesting things have come out of this pandemic. Certainly it's terrible and tragic and all of the things that it is. But I also think that there have been some discoveries as a world that we've made that we wouldn't have made otherwise.
Right. Well, that aside, so I want to talk a little bit about tonight of Atlantic Rim, man. Like, it's such a great movie. Like I was saying before we originally got, cut off, it was, I saw this movie originally about 5 or 6 years ago. Like, I caught the last 20 minutes, and I was like, okay, the next time I see this movie, or come across it, I'm going to check it out. And my buddy Hunter, who works on the show, he does the Green Arrow cosplay for Comic Insider and hands out keychains when we're at events and stuff like that and helps out. He was like, no, you got to check this out. And after we ran into you, before the interview, I got a copy of Atlantic Rim and watched it about 2 or 3 times. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, you watched it without the MST3K?
Yeah, I watched it about 3 times, and I realized that I didn't know your character was one of the main characters in the movie. I mean, was it Dr. Adams? Yeah, from NASA. That was pretty crazy. And like director of the program for the robots. I mean, that was. What was it like being on that movie? Because I didn't even know it was filmed in Pensacola until I watched it, like from beginning.
It was trippy. So the way it all came about was I was in Virginia at the time. I moved from Pensacola to Virginia, and I graduated from the University of West Florida. And so my husband and I were up in Virginia because he's military, and we were living there. And I got a message from Jerry Brisky, who works at the University of West Florida, and he was the local casting agent for the film. Okay. So he called me in Virginia. And said, hey, the script just came across my desk. I think you're perfect for it. You should come audition. And I said, oh, well, do I have to come back to Pensacola? And he's like, yeah, they're in-person interviews. And I was like, or auditions. And I was like, okay, I don't think I can come to Pensacola. And he was like, well, if you send in a video audition, we can do that. And so at the time, it was the very first video audition I'd ever done. And I was very, very nervous. But a good friend of mine, Mark, helped me do it. And I did the video interview, and I sent it in, and Jerry called me a couple days later, and he's like, "Well, they're interested in you, but they're not really sure," and blah 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 blah. And so that was incredibly nerve-wracking to have this, they're interested in you, possibly sort of phone call.
Right.
And then a couple more weeks went by, and I figured, oh, maybe nothing happened. And then I got a call, and he was like, "Yeah, they want you for the part of the part that you auditioned for, Dr. Margaret Adams." And I was like, oh, cool. And so then I had to come back down to Pensacola, and we shot for 15 days. Well, they shot for 15 days. I only shot for like 7.
All right.
And then, but I was back down in Pensacola for like 3 weeks almost, which was great because I had a house here, so that was super easy to do. And I met a lot of cool people on the film. Jared Kahn is the director. I became friends with Jackie Moore, who I'm still friends with. In California, she played the female pilot, whose name I can't recall. One of the colors, red.
The blue. She was
blue.
yeah.
And so so she was blue, and so she was really cool and very nice. But the very first day of shooting, I got out there, and I had hair and makeup done and everything, and they're like airbrushing stuff on me, and I'd never been airbrushed, and I was like, what? And I got out to this field, and the director comes running up to me, and Jared Kahn is a very interesting individual. He's hyper and mellow at the exact same time. It's kind of, I'm not saying he is, but it's kind of like he's on speed and marijuana simultaneously. And so he walks up to me and he's like, okay, so this is a funny scene where like there's like robots and they're like 30 feet up in the air. You've read the script, right? And I'm like, yes, I've read the script.
Right.
It's like, so these robots are like up in the air, and they're like, there's like one there, and there's one there, and there's one there, and you're like kind of training them, right? You're like training them. And I was like, okay, yes, I'm training them. And then he was like, so it's like this is like lines aren't in the script. It's like improvise. So like you just need to improvise this part and like just like pretend you're training them. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm like, I've had improv training. I have started my own improv troupe here in Pensacola, Florida. I can do this. And so then he's like, somebody give her like an iPad. So they like hand me an iPad, and I just start improvising this training scene with these robots that are 30 feet up in the air that obviously aren't really there. And he's like side coaching me through this thing because at ADR they can change everything. So he's like, yeah, now like tell her to pick up her axe and like do this. And I was like, okay. So I shot this scene like
awesome
10 times, and it was different every time, of course. And I was terrified. I was like, I am totally screwing this up. This is going to be bad. And at the end, all of the like tech crew and everything was out there, because in the beginning like nobody was out there. It was like me, Jared, and the very necessary people. But by the end it was like everybody, and they like all applauded, and I was like, oh shit, I'm so screwed. And that was the very first scene. It was an improvised scene in the middle of a field. And you see it in the movie, the scene where I'm looking up at the robots, and then at the end he goes, what do we do now? And I'm like, fly. And he's like, fly. I'm like, yes, fly. But it's that scene.
That is epic. I mean, so you said on the Pensacola Theater also. So in improv.
Yeah.
So I actually I noticed a lot of the stuff you do. Aside of being in movies. Can you talk a little bit about the improv theater? I mean,
sure,
I usually don't get out to Pensacola, even though like I'm on the outskirts. I'm on the other side of the 3 Mile Bridge. So.
Oh yeah, no, that's cool. So 15 years ago, I started an improv troupe here in town called Improbable Cause. And there's a reason I said it like that. You'll find out in a minute. And so I started this improv troupe with a woman named Debbie Kuhn, and then I moved to Japan, so she took it over. And so it's been running for 15 years. And as I've come back into town over the last couple of years, because I've bounced back and forth between Japan and Pensacola, I've rejoined the troupe every time I've come back into town. But about 3 years ago, I started my own company. So now I have another company called Improbable Cause Mystery Theater. So I run a murder mystery dinner theater instead of doing the improv troupe now. but we use a lot of the same people, and the murder mystery is also heavily improvised, although it is scripted. And so we're kind of like sister companies now. So that's one of the things I do. And this year we did this year we did the Pensacola Comedy Festival.
Right.
And we did that with the Indie Art Council that I also started here in Pensacola about June of last year. And so we're doing big things. We like to support independent artists here in town. And I started the Indie Art Council because I got upset because independent art in Pensacola, I feel, is not well represented. You know, you have the big three, you have PLT, you have UWF, you have PSC, and they have all the resources and they have all the money, which is not to say that they're bad institutions or anything like that. It's just who they are. And all of them try to help individual artists as much as they can, but there's a point where they just can't anymore. You know, they've got their own stuff going on, or they got their own rehearsals, or in as far as the educational part goes, the education higher ups stop them, you know, or whatever. And so I got upset because I noticed that independent artists weren't getting the exposure that they needed. They weren't getting the support or resources that they needed. They certainly didn't have the money. And so I started the Indie Art Council to support all independent art, theater, music, dance, visual art. And so we started doing that now.
That is amazing.
I love arts. I love performing arts, and I love indie art. I think that indie art is, across the country, is woefully underrepresented.
Right. On art, on movie wise, or when you get to indie stuff, movie wise, hopefully I'm not going to talk to you on this interview about it, but there's actually a project movie wise I was wanting to see if, and I'll hit you up, you know, another time about it. I was actually doing a Highlander project that's kind of held up right now because everything going on, and you know, with virus, like the first week of this, when they just started to close down and ask people to stay in smaller groups, my buddy from Fort Pickens, he actually hit me up and was like, man, this I was wanting to film this project, Highlander Lost McCloud, like another sequel of the Highlander series, shot like 80s style, and a lot of it I was wanting to do in Fort Pickens. And first week of all this happening, he was like, he's like, man, it's probably a perfect time for you to get out here. And then next week, everything got shut down. But
yeah, I was supposed to do an independent film about skunking, actually, that we were going to shoot out in Alabama with some friends of mine, and that got delayed as well. So we're sad, but it'll happen. It'll happen. We've already invested some money into it. It's got to happen at this point, or the producer will have fit.
Right. Yeah, and the project I'm doing, I mean, we're still doing it. It's just probably going to have to pick up back in, you know, September at the least. Hopefully when it starts to get cooler and everything, because, you know, the Highlander movies, everybody's wearing a trench coat and everything. You can't do that in the middle of summer anyway.
You would much rather want to do that in the fall, yeah, for sure.
But, yeah, if you were, yeah, I'll have to hit you up another time about that. But there was a police officer role. I thought you'd, you know, be the perfect role for that.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I love independent film as well in Pensacola, and I'm very excited about indie film in Pensacola. As you know, Chris Shadala has his group Kitty Get a Job, and they have their video sketch stuff that they do every week, and they put out on the internet and YouTube and things. And there's another woman in town that just moved here named Rachel Searcy, who is a filmmaker, and she likes to do like indie horror films. And I'm super excited about that because nobody in town does indie horror yet that I know of. I mean, there have been a couple films like Trepanation came out and some other one-offs here and there, but Rachel, that's what she wants to do, like, as a thing. And
that
she's a
awesome.
brilliant cinematographer. So I'm so excited about women specifically in indie film here in Pensacola.
That was awesome, man. I can't wait to see some of those projects. If you could send me links on those, that would be great. But before can't keep you on here all night. So before we have to go,
Uh-huh.
want to ask on it could be from theater or just any movie, any performance you've been in, or doesn't have to be Atlantic Rim or anything. Just what was one of your favorite roles that you've got to do so far? Like something that just afterwards, when you walk off set, you're like, man, this is awesome.
This is the role I wanted to do. That's a huge question. Well, I just shot a film in LA called Bums. That's going to come out Bums,
Mm-hmm.
and that was incredibly rewarding. I got to play a character named Mrs. Briggs, and she was a social worker at the shelter, and that was an experience as an actor that I haven't had yet. It was a very emotionally taxing and dramatic role. We shot overnight shoots for 2 weeks. So we were there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. every night. That, within recent memory, is probably one of my more favorite things I've done. Play-wise, I got to play the player in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern at UWF, and I absolutely loved that. It was a great play, and it was a chance for me to learn how to act with my whole body and not just my head and my voice and stuff, and it taught me a lot. So that's what I would say. I've got one quick story before I go, because I think your viewers will be interested in this story, and a bunch of my friends know this story already.
Yeah,
So
go for it.
Atlantic Rim story. So we're on the set of Atlantic Rim, and Tretch is there. And Tretch is the African American gentleman who is in Naughty by Nature. He's the African American guy who was one of the pilots. So you had
the dude in the green one.
The green guy. Yep.
Yeah.
So you had the guy who's like, it's very, very large. Yeah, that guy. So
that guy cracked me up actually in the movie. I hate to interrupt you real quick. I was just gonna say
go ahead.
a lot of the scenes when his buddy would between the characters is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this anyways, and he advised against it. And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna follow you anyways.
Oh yeah.
That cracked me up.
Jim had no spine. That was the character's name, Jim. Jim had no spine. He was always just like, don't do it, man, don't do it. Well, okay, I guess I'll do it. And, I guess you had to do that for the writing. But yeah, I thought the same thing. I also thought it was very interesting how they always drank, and yet they were on duty. I was like, oh, that's fun. And then Seville burned down twice, which was fascinating. Well, it burned down and then it came back.
I love how they actually got the logo of Seville Quarter in the background of that shot.
No, I don't think so. And it's so funny. The guy who's serving them drinks, I think he's a local dude.
Yeah.
But everybody who's ever commented on the film thinks it's the guy from Smash Mouth. It's so funny. I mean, every single interview I've ever read about it, they're like, the dude from Smash Mouth is in it. I'm like, no, the dude from Smash Mouth is not.
Yeah, I know what part you're talking about.
But yeah, so I met Tretch, and when I met him, I didn't know his name was Tretch because I don't listen to rap music as much as I probably should. And so I walked up to him and I said, oh, it's nice to meet you, Mr. Treach. And he looks down at me and he goes, my name's Tretch. And I was like, yes, it is. And so later on in the film shoot, we're doing this very technical scene where I'm talking about the halo, which is the thing that they put on their head.
Yeah, with the suits that helps them operate them.
Yeah, so that big technical scene that I'm talking about, I'm in the hangar and all that stuff. So we're shooting the scene, and you'll hear it in the film. It actually made it into the film, which is terrifying. At the end of the scene, Tretch goes, and this was probably like the 5th take, and Tretch goes, say word, at the end of his little speech. And I'm like looking at him because it's not in the script and I don't know what he means. And so I'm like, what does he mean? Like, what is say word? And like for like 10 seconds, my brain's going, do you say word? What do you do here? What is the proper etiquette? And so I'm looking at him and I'm like, and so finally I'm like, I'm just going to make a choice. And so my character, the NASA scientist, looks at him dead in the face and goes, word. Yes, I do. Yes,
That's
it is.
awesome, though. I mean,
And I
this is a
thought
great movie.
this is gonna not make it into the film, and then it did.
It's a great movie, though. It was fun because
It was a lot of fun. It was I was amazed when I actually saw the film and saw that that part was in it. But I don't think they had a huge editing budget, which you can see in the film with the stock footage. I didn't know it was an asylum film until halfway through shooting it, and I didn't really know what an asylum film was. And then I kind of discovered it as I was shooting it, and I was like, oh, that explains so much. And then I also found out that Bo Derek was supposed to have my part, but she said no, so that's why I got it. And I was kind of well, that's interesting. I'm okay with that. So yeah, so it was a weird experience, but wonderful, and it's done so much for me.
I mean, check out Land Grim. It's a fun movie. You can find out on Amazon Prime. You can get it on Xbox One, PlayStation. I mean, pretty much anywhere online.
And it's on Mystery Science Theater's The Gauntlet.
Yes, Mystery Science Theater. Love that show. So, Comic Insider, like and subscribe. We'll see you in the multiverse. And don't forget, this is the only channel that has a clean bill of health from Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange, Doctor Fate, Doctor Who, and Doctor Manhattan. Gotta run.
Bye, guys.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ming Chen from AMC's Comic Book Men, and you should subscribe, watch, then tell all your other friends to like and subscribe Comic Insider. You better be watching it. Yes, I will. Yeah, I will. I'll let you down and find you. I've trained you. You better be watching. Comic Insider.